Good afternoon, folks. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Sunday. It is the Earthmaster out here, about 12:02 p.m. That's California time here. May 25th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity on the earthquake 3D globe shows a 3.8 here across the Mediterranean region. Looks like around Greece there. Potentially getting a little bit of earthquake activity. Let's go ahead and start off here on the south side of the globe. A little bit of larger movement happening this morning with a 6-pointer up around the Tonga Trench. Not too deep there into the subduction zone, about 29 miles deep for that 6-pointer. Looks like a little bit of further activity to the south as well. One of the latest quakes around the Kermadec Trench, Kermadec Islands area for a 4.8. As far as the New Zealand activity here yesterday, we had it was a little hot spot of movement. Looks like that migration has worked its way back northward there, but continue to keep an eye here across the New Zealand region. It's been looks like it's been wanting to move here as far as a larger activity goes. It's been a little bit elevated out there in the last 24 hours. I had a 4-pointer and quite a few 3s underneath North Island, New Zealand. So that leaves a little seismic gap zone across the area of Papua New Guinea, eastward here up into the about the Tonga Trench region. Also pretty darn quiet up around the Japan Trench, the Kuro Kamchatka. All these subduction zones here are super quiet today. A little bit of movement around Taiwan, just south here into the Philippines, but of course the typical earthquake sequence going on there across the Indonesia area and the Java Trench. A little bit of quake activity way up north here. Looks like literally the center area of the North Pole area, but way up there. 4.4. A little bit of swarming still going on around the Iceland area. Quite a few 3s and 2s out there in the last 24 hours. Been an ongoing sequence of events. Let's take a look here at California. We'll start off here in the Pacific Northwest. A couple earthquakes there on the map. Really nothing big going on up here across the Washington area for now. That's probably a good thing, right? Still got tremor activity occurring. Although most of the Cascadia tremor has been heightened down south here with a decent amount of tremor activity. Let me show you guys here real quick. Go over here to the tremor map. And this alone is from yesterday. That's 543 epicenters of tremor. That's still a significant number for a daily count, and that's underneath the, towards the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, underneath this area where those red dots are. It's quite amplified, and I pulled up the monthly chart here, and this is technically only about the last couple weeks since we've seen elevated tremor activity. So if this continues like that, we could be into the 15,000 or 20,000 range should it continue at this daily count. But looking back here at the last 30 days, that's a decent number, 10,215 epicenters of tremor. A lot going on out there across the Cascadia, building up some steam and momentum. This is an event, something we probably haven't seen since, it was probably 2022. We had a smaller event back there in 2004 towards the end of the year, which resulted in that 7-pointer off the coast of Northern California. It was almost immediately following this tremor activity. So it will be interesting to see what plays out following this event. But still got, like I say, it's still going on. We'll check out the tremor activity map later tonight once it comes out. Still some movement, though, happening down south here across Northern California. 4-pointer. Been popping in this area specifically, right around that triple point boundary, the southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area, and the Pacific Plate, North American Plate, Gorda Plate boundary. That triple point boundary right here has been quite active. We look at the last 7 days of activity here. A lot going on. The majority of these, it's a mixed bag of the deepness here of the earthquakes. The depth of the earthquakes here run anywhere from 3 to, looks like, down to about 11 miles or so underneath this area. A couple earthquakes up here, very small earthquakes, but they are into the, looks like 23 miles deep into the subduction zone of the Cascadia. That earthquake from about 3 days ago. Another one up here, very small surface quake. You know, we're starting to see some little signs of strain out here due to that tremor activity that's occurring underneath this region. Just be on guard out there. One earthquake close to Mount Shasta up here. Little two-pointer to the southeast. Been relatively quiet out there across Mount Shasta recently. I mean, it's a beautiful volcano. In fact, I can see it here from where I live. Beautiful prominent feature all across southern Oregon, northern California, but it is a volcano, and one day it will kick back up again. Mount Lassen over here sits way up to the north of this earthquake that struck underneath Lake Almanor this morning, a 2.4. Bay Area remains quiet there, folks. Not a whole lot going on. Not for sure if we're going to see something pop here soon or not, but it's been awfully quiet. A lot of movement up north and quite a bit of movement down south here as well. But the Bay Area is just stuck right there in the zone of quietness, and that's probably not a good thing. But nothing going on there for now. Around the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault, a couple smaller earthquakes here on the map. Really not into the Parkfield section yet. There is some earthquake activity just shy of it to the west, 2.2 late last night. But watching this area closely here because a lot of creeping earthquake activity. It's called the creeping section. I'm not making that up. It's an area of the plate boundary that literally just creeps along in slow slip type events without really building up a lot of strain here, resulting in larger earthquake activity. So that's why we always see a bunch of earthquake activity on it. Unlike the area down south here in the Parkfield section, where that's it's pretty well, I think it's primed here for some earthquake activity. It looks like the southern branch here, though, is, roughly from the Parkfield section southward here. This is, I think it's fairly well primed for some big earthquake activity. In fact, a couple articles I read here recently stating that the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault there, the next 6-pointer that's pretty much coming up due, could trigger our next big one down there. They have in past historical events, not recent, not our last 6-pointer that happened back in 2004, but historically, they've related the two. When things happen up here around the Parkfield segment, that triggers the San Andreas Fault there, the southern branch, resulting in larger earthquake activity. But for now, let's not seeing anything big happening on it. The San Andreas Fault here, the southern segment, has seen quite a few swarms out here in the last 30 days around it and on it. But no big earthquake activity yet. Just remember, it's about... this right here, the best thing I can think of, and there's many different things you could use, but I consider this kind of like you could use a mousetrap maybe. Think of a mousetrap that's just sitting there tight as can be, and all it takes is just a little feather that may drop on it, and then it just pops right there. It's that may not be the best type of vision there, but it's fairly well wound up, folks, about as tight as it can get, and it's just going to take a little bit of movement around it or on it to trigger this big earthquake out here. It's been all too long. We're just living in that. I think we're living in that future time period here where we will see that event take place. That's not something I want to see, but if you think about it, every other comment I read here on YouTube, whether it's on my videos or other earthquake videos, they've been saying the San Andreas Fault's going to be going for decades. I heard it when I was a kid. That's right. Look how much time has passed since then, right? Back then it was even wound tight as can be with a whole bunch of accumulated strain on it. Here we are much later in the future, and it has not happened yet. So that makes us 1 day, 1 second closer to the big one out here. Just got to be prepared and don't be complacent. Don't let those people out there say, well, it'll never happen. Oh, you couldn't be more wrong. It's coming. Los Angeles area, a couple earthquakes out there around Universal City. Underneath here, it looks like, about 10 miles or so. Unnamed possible fault. That's the area that's had actually quite a bit of earthquake activity on it recently, on that unnamed possible fault. Quite a few ones. In fact, if we go back the last couple months or so, there's been even some larger earthquake activity on it than the ones we're seeing right now. One earthquake off the coast here, the San Joaquin Hills area. Kind of an odd area down here. Pelican Hill fault, potentially. Either way, Southern California is moving a little bit with a series of small quakes out here in the 1 and 2 range. There was one earthquake here on the San Jacinto fault zone above 2.5. Looks like that was early this morning. The San Andreas fault continues to sleep for now, but that's not always going to be the case out there, folks. Got to be prepared. Can't live in fear, right? Can't live every day, is today going to be the big one? You just got to be prepared for when it happens. And I'm telling you, I'd like to explain it a lot out here that a good advance notice, at least 10 seconds, maybe sometimes more depending on your location out there, as far as earthquake notification goes. It's called the MyShake app. I've had it on my phone since they've developed it, and it's let me know quite a few times here when we got earthquake activity across Northern California. That 7-pointer that struck up here last year in December, 7.2, I believe it was, that sent me a 20-second notification to expect shaking in my area. And I live here just outside of Chico, a decent ways away from that 7-pointer, but I felt it. It was quite the rolling motion out here. And it gave me a 20-second advance notification from the time that earthquake struck to the time I started to feel the shaking, the waves. I was up here in Mount Lassen camping at a beautiful cabin up there when my earthquake notification system went off again for a 5.7 out here in Nevada. That gave me a 20-second notification as well. So, of course, if you're close to the epicenter, very close, it's probably not going to give you much of a warning, but you know what? It's better to have some type of, even if it's a couple seconds, to expect some large shaking. It's called MyShake. It's an app. It's completely free, and I tell you what, all of us, I think, should have it out here across the West Coast, wherever we're dealing with some large earthquake activity here soon, I'm sure. It's just a matter of time, right? Time and pressure. And it's a good thing to have, folks. Just download it. It sends you a little. It woke me up a couple times there in other earthquakes aside from those ones I mentioned. And it goes off whether you have your phone on silent or not. And I think that's a good thing. So go check it out. MyShake early alert notification system. Free. Completely free, folks. No ads, nothing like that. Nevada out here, quite active it looks like. Look at all this swarming going on here across Nevada. In fact, if you look at Southern California, even though there's not a whole bunch of 2.5s, there is an increase in the multitude of quakes out here. And it looks like it covers Northern California as well. This is actually quite a bit above normal for a daily count of earthquakes out here across the West Coast. We got 101 earthquakes there in the last 24 hours. Not so much above 2.5, but it's an increasing amount of earthquakes here in the smaller magnitude range, and that's a sign here of things potentially getting ready to move out here. When things get elevated like this, we start seeing larger earthquakes. Up through the, what do we got up here in Idaho? A couple smaller quakes, nothing big. Yellowstone National Park. I don't see anything showing up on the map, but we'll double check that here. Then we'll get into space weather here in just a minute, where we had another decent M flare this morning from that same sunspot that produced the X flare yesterday. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity out there across Yellowstone National Park. This is the overview of the seismograph stations and their respected locations out there across that super volcano. The outline there of the black circle, or black circle type image here, that's the Yellowstone caldera. As you can see, not a whole lot of earthquake activity. It would show up, it would definitely show up out here, and I just don't see it. A lot of clutter of outside noise. It could be wind, it could be anything out there, but not volcanic, not earthquake activity. Oil fields rocking and rolling out there in the liquid gold fields outside of Midland and Big Spring, outside of Pecos, Texas as well. 28 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. That's a decent amount. Normally, when these start acting up, well, we start seeing earthquake activity around the New Madrid seismic zone here, and it looks like we do have one earthquake this morning out in Missouri. That's at the northern end of the New Madrid zone. Actually, it's right in the center, right in the center portion of the New Madrid seismic zone for 1.9. That's been somewhat active out here as well. 26 earthquakes here in the last 30 days of various magnitudes across that intraplate boundary that can have some big earthquakes. The last series of large earthquakes out here was 1811, 1812, where a series of mid to upper 7.0 earthquakes struck. Imagine that today. Ooh, talk about, it'd be not good. But it's in the future. I guarantee you, this is not going away. So North American plate obviously on the move. Lots of areas showing out here. Keep an eye on the west coast where the plate boundary is. One little lonesome earthquake up here. Well north of Boston, little 1.6. That was from that's from this morning. Fairly recent. Very small, nothing big, but it just goes to show North American plate's on the move out here for sure. Hawaii, did we have our eruption yet? I don't think I've seen any notification out there. Let's see what we got here for the webcams across Kilauea Volcano on this fine Sunday. Well, I can't tell if that's lava spouting out there, spewing out a little bit or not. Let's see. Let's check out the updates here real quick, see if we got anything. Sunday, May 25th, that's today. Episode 23, precursory activity has increased since yesterday morning. Summit inflation has resumed. Here they mentioned the notable decrease in the rate of summit inflation between Wednesday and Friday has likely delayed the onset of sustained fountaining compared to previous episodes. That's something we've been pointing out here with this episode 23 in the last few videos here. Kind of leveled out for some reason, not for sure why. Whether we may be getting close to depleting this area. I mean, there's always stuff coming up from the hot spot as far as magma goes, but maybe things are starting to change underneath the area, because this episode here is quite different than any other 22 episodes that we've seen since December as far as the eruptions go. This is the past month of inflation leading up to eruption, and then that causes deflation here on the chart. There's a pause in the eruption, then we go back up here for a few days for inflation, eruption, deflation. So this one here, though, is definitely different. So something happened here about a couple days here where it just leveled off. Most of the time when it levels off, it reaches peak inflation level, and then it just erupts. But something's going on here this time. We should see the eruption happen pretty soon, though. Everything's still going up as far as the inflation goes. So that will happen, I say, unless something changes here, maybe a migration of the magma. But if we do see that migration change, then we would see an increase in earthquake activity where it may be leading off to. But I don't see anything of abnormal activity out there for now, as far as any type of magma displacement goes. Still right around the summit area of Kilauea Volcano. All right, what else we got here, folks? Alaska, pretty quiet up there. Not a whole lot going on. All right, let's check out space weather. Another M flare. Look at that, starting to get active out here. And this is a sign here that we got a growing sunspot out here. And I pointed this out a couple days ago prior to the X flare. I said we had to watch this area back over here. 4098 is the culprit. This is an older image from last night. Here's the latest image. Look at that. That thing is growing. But unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because a lot of people love these solar flares. They love, they're interesting to study, right? they don't have any effect here on Earth as far as any negative consequences go, unless we get something massive. But this little X flare that we seen yesterday, that's actually quite common. So, but this area is growing quite nicely, and it looks like it's continuing to grow today to this hour. That will pose further risk here of some further X flares. We do have one region back over here as well. What makes these areas interesting and complex is, you got to look at these colors here, these deep, darker colors indicating the magnetic complexity. That one's definitely growing here. Maybe with this one here, look at that massive area. Finally got a visual of that sunspot we've been watching on the far side of the sun here, peeking around the corner. We'll have to see what that one's doing, though. Hard to tell as far as complexity goes. It does have some beautiful magnetic arches up here. There's a couple bright features there on the UV image of the sun. So we'll watch that. Maybe getting active here. But this region that's been producing that X flare and M flare activity, it's just about ready to pop off here on the western limb of the sun, out of sight, out of mind. But while it remains in view, I think we got decent chances here for some stronger flaring activity. 20% chance for X flares, M flare at 55, C flare around 99% chance or so. That will continue as long as that's in view, and potentially these other areas remain active. No major roars there in the forecast for now, folks. Quick glance at the next close approach asteroids here to the planet. Well, man, look at this one, 1,300 feet. That is crazy. That's coming by today, it looks like. Discovered back in 2003. There's the official name, 2003 HB. That's well over 4 million miles, though. It looks like we're fairly safe there. And I really don't see anything of any major close approaches out here for now. Storm Prediction Center for severe weather at the surface levels, well, just above the surface. Got rinse and repeat cycle out here over the next couple days for severe weather across southern plains and portions of the south. Tornado, wind, and of course Texas and Oklahoma love to get in the big hail threats out there. That looks to be the case today and over the next couple days. So a lot of rain coming to this area that's already dealt with a lot of rain. Crazy amount of rain. I wish we got a fraction of the rain that Oklahoma and Texas gets out here across California. It's I'm dreading the summer out here. Towards the end of this coming week, we're supposed to be up in the high 100s, 107, 108. No joke. I don't live in Death Valley. I live just north of Sacramento here in the Sacramento Valley. Right? Everyone thought it was nice and cool here. Well, that is along the coastline if you're at the immediate coast. But once you start going inland away from that marine layer, ooh, it cooks like a Death Valley. All right, live look at the seismograph stations there. Not a whole lot going on. One little earthquake at Chile and maybe an earthquake down there in Southern California around Barrett. That's outside of San Diego here. Let's see which one that's picking up. 1156. I don't know. It's not even on here yet. But, yeah, just keep an eye on the west coast here. We're starting to move. A lot of signs out here with the elevated microquake intensity kicking up. Watch for Kilauea, Volcano, Hawaii. That's going to stir up. Got to stir up here today. It has to. All right, I'm out of here, folks. Enjoy your Sunday. I'm going to go outside, get some yard work done before it gets really hot here in the coming week. And just enjoy the weekend. If you got a 3-day weekend, awesome. Make the best of it out there. Enjoy whatever you're doing. And we'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening for the Sunday night update. Take care, folks. Make sure you subscribe. Please like this video. And, yeah, we'll see you guys here soon.